Hello, welcome to this episode of The Weapons of War. Again, I'm your host, Eden Tronde. Today, we are going to tackle another topic that I spotted in the news. That's on Tuesday, 16th June, and it was specifically on the BBC. The headline: Does trust in the news hits a new low, research suggests. So this is about the dwindling or reducing trust in the news. Why is the trust in the news, especially mainstream news, reducing gradually over the years? This was the headline: Trust in the news hits a new low, research suggests. Just snippets from the article. Trust in the news has fallen to an all-time low globally, the lowest since annual reports by Reuters Institute began more than a decade ago. They began in 2015. This is the lowest that the news has fallen in terms of trust. And the findings are based on an online survey of almost 100,000 people in 48 markets. The research published on Tuesday suggested that public trust worldwide is at 37%. Only 37% of people trust the news. That is 3 points down on this time last year. So last year, the trust in the news stood at 40%. This year is standing at 37%. In the UK, it has fallen by 5 points to 30%. That is 20 points lower than 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, trust in the news in the UK was at 50%. Today, it is at 30%. Our data points to a mix of anxiety, disengagement, and cynicism from audiences, many of whom don't like the way publishers are covering long-running news stories such as immigration, inflation, and international conflict, the institute said. In the US, trust in the news stands at 25%, and even lower, 15% among politically right-leaning Americans. Some major news outlets have seen big drops with trust in both CBS News and Fox News, down 10 points from 2025, and CNN falling by 6. Anyway, that's in a nutshell. But the whole point we're talking about here is the drop in the trust in news, the dwindling trust in news. People are losing trust in news. Why? Why is that so? How come that people that trusted news those years back, today they don't trust news? I'll give a brief story of myself. I grew up in a bit of the early 90s when TV wasn't so much a big deal. We had only one TV station at the time, UTV, and used to broadcast from 6 to midnight. So therein, we trusted news. For me, the moment the late Ballet Francis would read the news, you trusted the news. If it was Lucy Banya, you trusted the news. If it was Charles Kanoemugisha, you trusted. You knew that these people had our backs. Everyone trusted the news. You could say, "No, I had it in the news. I had it on, all Uganda radio, and never written radio much. But we trusted the news. So what changed along the way? What changed is not so far, for us to discern. What changed is this that I'm going to show you. One, I want to show you today a couple of stories that were told by mainstream media that turned out to be outright lies. Trust is broken when consistently someone lies to another, and this other person that is being lied to discovered that actually they were lied to. That's when trust is broken, and that's what is happening. Trust is not a constant commodity that no matter what happens, someone will trust you. So whenever there is a breakage in trust, just know that there was a lie somewhere, or someone discovered that they're being taken advantage of. And that's what has happened in this instance, in this relationship of the audiences and the mainstream media or the news. There have been various lies, outright lies, engineered in the newsrooms that so many of us grew up thinking they are watchdogs looking out for us. But as time has gone on, we have discovered that actually they're looking out for interests of the political elite. This is just an example. November 3rd, 2025, This was an exclusive by Telegraph. Exclusive: BBC doctored Trump's speech, internal report reveals. So this was a speech by Trump, to back up a bit. He made during 2021, I think on January 6th, at the Capitol Hill, when he was trying to fight the rigged election of 2020. So I was, rallying his supporters, to go to the Capitol, to, call their senators to peacefully, demonstrate and show their dissent with the results that had been announced. Okay? So, but BBC took this speech and pieced it up together from one end to another to make Trump say things that he had not said. This is how the article read. Corporation edited BBC. The corporation edited footage in a panorama program to make it seem the president was encouraging Capitol riots, according to the whistleblower dossier. BBC doctored a Donald Trump speech by making him appear to encourage the Capitol Hill riots. That was on January 6, 2021, according to internal whistleblower memo seen by the Telegraph. The Panorama program, broadcast a week before the US election, completely misled viewers by showing the president telling supporters he was going to walk to the Capitol with them to fight like hell, when in fact he said he would work with them to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. The mangled up footage was highlighted in a 19-page dossier on BBC bias. Of course, this dossier was written by the former independent advisor to the BBC editorial, Michael Prescott. So BBC, like someone makes Trump made like an hour-long kind of speech, and they picked something from 1 minute and added it with another and put them together to make him appear to say things that he never said. But I'll stop here, that you may view or see what actually happened.
The BBC claims to be the pinnacle of impartial reporting, but what if there was an internal dossier that revealed that wasn't the case? The Telegraph has seen a letter that reveals one of the BBC's own independent advisors repeatedly warned that the broadcaster had serious and systemic problems. A week before the US election, BBC Panorama released a documentary called Trump: A Second Chance, and in it, they played the following clip.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell.
But Trump didn't in fact say this at all. The BBC spliced together two clips that took place 54 minutes apart. So let's go through it again.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you.
Now, see there, between Capitol and, that's a cut. Here's what Trump actually said.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
It's different. It wasn't until nearly an hour later that he then said the second part of the BBC's version.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we fight. We fight like hell.
Now, it's true that a lot of people will still feel Trump's claims that in 2021 the election was stolen were entirely inappropriate and unbecoming of a figure in politics. But irrespective of your personal views on Trump, the question remains, how is a national broadcaster, funded by taxpayers on the premise that it will provide impartial reporting, allowed to splice together content in a way that one of its own advisors said materially misled viewers? But if members of its own editorial standards committee have no faith in the broadcaster, you have to ask, should we?
All right, going on to another story that again was reported by various media houses. Again, I'm showing this story to show you why there is a low trust in news. The low trust in news is not coming from conspiracy theorists. The low trust in news is not coming from other people, people no longer, trust news because of that. No, it's because the new people have been betrayed by the news people themselves. It is a case of the audience is being betrayed. This is another story. July 2025. You realize that these stories I'm giving you are last year. Okay. Child starved boy with genetic disorder. So this story, to back up a bit again, this is about Israel and the Palestinian war. Remember when they used to say that Israel was stopping trucks that were taking food into Gaza and therefore starving the people in Gaza. Okay, therefore Israel was being condemned for trying to cause or engineer a famine and cause a genocide to kill all people in Palestine by denying them food. So there's this picture of this young boy, heart-rending photo of Muhammad Zakaria Ayub Al-Matok. Okay. The picture made rounds, including in so many outlets, including the New York Times, NBC News, The Guardian, even the BBC, and others, as evidence that Israel's war against Hamas had led to the starvation of children in the Palestinian enclave. So many people jumped on this picture to show that you see what Israel is doing. This boy is even sick. This boy became like the poster boy of the starvation that was happening in Gaza. The starvation. You understand? But fast forward, someone was able to notice that, hey, fast hold up. How come in the same photo that many of these outlets, of one of the photos that many of these outlets were actually running, there was this stuffed boy, who had become a poster boy. Actually, one of the photos, his own brother was standing in the background and he looked much better and healthier. And then someone asked, how come the brother to this malnourished boy looks better? That's when actually many found out that really the reality was that this boy was not malnourished, but others, he had a genetic disorder that explained why he was looking the way he looked, which is also unfortunate that the boy had a genetic disorder. But the media jumped onto that photo, ran it to again push a certain narrative that the genocidal intent of Israel in Gaza to wipe out the entire Palestinian people in the Gaza point of fighting Hamas. You see, that was another lie that was immediately uncovered. This was New York Post. This is how they report about it. Viral image of starving Gaza boy. Don't tell. Viral images of starving Gaza boy don't tell the whole story because he suffers from genetic disorder. But the photos had gone viral. Courtesy of what? Of the mainstream news. And again, I also love this picture. I said, here is what they didn't show you. The baby wearing a diaper. His older brother, healthy, alert, and visibly well fed. They never showed us that. But they beamed to the world. You see this starving boy. And he became the poster boy of the starvation, apparently, in Gaza. Courtesy of who? Of Israel. That was just another story last year, okay? And then there's this one that perhaps takes a cake. This is again November 6, 2025, okay? BBC had this anchor of theirs, Maxine Croxo, let me not bastardize her other name, broke rules over pregnant people facial expression. So there's this news anchor who was given a script. As she's reading the script, she comes across a statement where they say pregnant people, and she changed that facial expression and changed it to say no, pregnant women. And guess what? When the BBC, the BBC upheld the impartiality complaints over their presenter. People complained that she antagonized the feelings of so many people, and therefore also BBC acknowledged that yes, she had done wrong. She had done wrong to say what? To say pregnant women. Isn't it only women that get pregnant? But and these people want to say pregnant people as if to assume that also men get pregnant. Now, if we can't even agree on such basic truths, how can we trust you when you can't even say pregnant women? You want to say pregnant people. You get to push against the narrative that men also can get pregnant. You've heard those things that men also get periods. So how can your audiences keep trusting you when you are driving such agendas, telling such outright lies. And this is not only to BBC, this applies to so many media houses. We shall be going through this a lot. I'll give a couple of episodes highlighting certain stories where the media, mainstream media, has told various lies, and then which then explains why they this low trust in the media. I'll show you this clip of this lady, on the news on BBC, and I'll share it.
London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine has released research which says that nearly 600 heat-related deaths are expected in the UK. Malcolm Mystery, who is involved in the research, says that the aged, pregnant people, women, and those with pre-existing health conditions need to take precautions.
So that was it. What if it were you? Would you go with pregnant people or pregnant women? But then the BBC sided with the people pushing the narrative that men can also get pregnant. And then they're wondering why people don't trust them. So in essence, that this is something from the book Manufacturing Consent of 1988, which was a critique of media operations. The way media operates by Noam Chomsky, he was a co-author. But he said that contrary to what so many people believed about the media, that, the media, they are looking out for us against these big, bureaucrats, corporations, that was almost like a David Goliath kind of thing, where the media has David taking on Goliath, on our behalf. Well, like, that was a myth. But his biggest, I think issue at the time, or concern at the time, was that the general public doesn't know what is happening, and doesn't even know that it doesn't know. That was his major issue, that the fact that this is happening is bad enough. But the worst bit is that the public doesn't know that that's happening, but even the public doesn't even know that doesn't know. Therefore, the public continues with his worry was that the public was continually trusting the media, like this watchdog that is like a David, they are taking on Goliath. But I think I have good news for him, that I think with this latest report, the public has awakened or continues to awake from that slumber, knowing that it's not entirely that mainstream media especially has our backs. And in fact, the author of Manufacturing Consent also noted that these people, what they do is that while they drive up their own narratives, while they're in bed with these bureaucrats and corporations, they allow manageable dissent to give you the illusion that, hey, these people are on our backs. You see, they even broke the other corruption story. You see, they even broke down the other corporation. That's manageable consent, to keep us in the illusion that they have our backs. But generally speaking, there have been various stories or various instances where the mainstream media has broken the trust of the audiences, and now the audiences have started to move away. They have awakened and they're moving away. I'll leave you with this clip of the editor of Sunday Telegraph telling BBC that enough is enough. The bias has reached its zenith. Is Mr. Alistair Heath. That's it for today, but this is just part one. We shall analyze other reports, what they have said about the dwindling, trust in mainstream media, and also capture a couple of stories where the media has told outright lies, not mistakes, lies. So this is about the low trust in the media. Why is it so? All right, that's it for today.
The awful truth about the BBC is now too monstrous to hide. Our national broadcaster is not merely dishonest, biased and prone to cover-ups, as a Telegraph investigation reveals. It has also been wrong about almost everything that matters. A panorama documentary spliced together two sections of a speech by Donald Trump on the day of the Capitol Hill riots.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we fight. We fight like hell.
Trump, whom the BBC hates, was made to appear as if he were inciting supporters to go to Congress and
fight like hell,
when he was actually encouraging them to protest peacefully. The BBC rarely states its views explicitly, but its institutional bias is off the charts. Fueled by billions of pounds extracted via the licence fee, the BBC has spent 40 years shrinking the Overton window, waging war against centre-right dissidents, bullying politicians into following destructive orthodoxies, and promoting an anti-Western, anti-capitalist, anti-conservative worldview. Its output, riddled with groupthink, lapped up by our decrepit establishment, reeks of oikophobia, economic illiteracy, soft socialism, suicidal empathy and luxury beliefs. Seduced by critical theory, the BBC backs the anywheres against the somewheres, supports global institutions from the EU to UNRWA, and barely concedes its disgust at those who prefer power to be located at the national level. The BBC is disconnected not just from the working class, but from suburban values and reform and conservative voting Britain. Tim Davie, the Director General, must resign. The licence fee must be abolished. Enough is enough.